Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain, co-host, here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
Coach, we're so close to football.
Yep.
We are so close.
You guys were one of the last ones to start as far as high school goes.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are already going.
A lot start in July now. A lot.
We're 11th.
Yeah.
October or August, not October. August 11th is our first day of practice. And then we have to still do the acclimation period and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Good to our team, Shem, and the rest of the team about, the dates. And I was like, next week, I think everybody's got to be going. Maybe there's one or two states that aren't, but, I think everybody's got to be going by like next week.
Yeah.
Just
what is it? Some state we work with up in the Northeast. It's not Massachusetts, is it? Are they super late?
Massachusetts is, I don't know what their start date is. Massachusetts and Washington are very different, and I don't know if this is still the case for sure, but they're very different in their rules as far as player contact. And then, of course, Massachusetts, along with some of the other northeastern states, has the Thanksgiving games where no matter what happens, which I've heard some coaches, it's a cool tradition, and everybody, I think, outside of it thinks it's really cool. But like, if you're terrible and you have a 3-week break and then you have to come back and play this, random Thanksgiving. I mean, they're not random; they're rivalries and stuff. But it's interesting. They have a little bit different. But Washington and Massachusetts have the strictest contact rules. But it is funny because we have a lot of coaches in Washington and Massachusetts because what we do fits with, hey, I got to get this installed. I don't have all off season to do this.
Right.
So then we'll have other coaches who are like, I don't know what to do. I only have 2 practices a week for 9 months to get all this installed. And it's like, you're fine. I don't know who around you is going 4 days a week for, from January to like, you don't need to do that. Like,
no, not
like, and I mean, and luckily I've generally worked with people who are of the same minds. Like, if that's what it takes to win it all, I don't have what it takes. And I just have to accept that. Like, I just have to accept that. And I generally coach in places where I don't think our players would, I'm not going to do, like, there are certain things that I'm not going to do, right? I'm not going to do illegal recruiting. I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to break the rules or the spirit of the rules. I'm not going to sacrifice my personal life to win a football game. Like, if that's you, like, good on you, man. But yeah. So I've always thought that for those coaches, those coaches are always, we don't have this, we don't have that. And I'm like, that's amazing. That's awesome. We've had Dave Dugan and Con, who coached in the same league for a while. And like, they had all those restrictions and stuff. And I'm just like, that's awesome. That's great.
I think it was Minnesota I was in this year, and they were opening up like all summer contact, like no.
Yeah. Oh, there's states. So everybody's different. And there's, I remember going to Georgia and they were allowed 2 weeks and everybody did it different. So they were basically allowed 10 practices, right? And that's what we always had 2 weeks, and it was late because we had a lot of baseball players. We were like baseball state champions and not football. So we were always late to let baseball season kind of wind down. And of course they were still playing always. They tried to do it after baseball season, but it's like, well, they're going to go to state championship where they're not going to be there. But I remember, not when I played, but, going to laser clinics in Atlanta, and some guys would do it in January, and some guys would do it in March, and some guys would do it in May, and some guys would split those 10 practices up over 4 weeks and, do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday the next week. And then like, I know states like, I think Ohio has just 20 days that they can practice. And it's like, they just have 20 days and it starts in June and runs to August or something like that. And it's like, they're allowed to figure out what to do with these 20 days, which is, kind of similar to NCAA. NCAA has that, like, you've got this amount of dates, and you'll see them do the same kind of thing with the staggered dates and all that sort of stuff. So,
right.
Yeah, everybody's all over the place. At least some things have gotten a little bit more uniform, like overtime rules, pretty uniform. Remember at one point, overtime rules were all like, we lost a game when I was in high school on the penetration rule. Sounds dirty. It is. Yeah, we lost a game. Each team got the ball. I think I've talked about this before. Second game of the year, we play Lassiter. And I went to Pope, for those of you who are newer and happen to be from Atlanta area. And we play Lassiter. We won our first game of the season against Upson Lee in like some weird classic game. And we play the second game of the season, so we're off to a good start. We play Lassiter, and we end up tied 21-21 at the end of 4 quarters. And the overtime rule was each team got the ball on like your own 20-yard line, and you got one drive. And if nobody scored, I guess if both teams scored, you did it again, maybe, if you ended up tied at the end of that. But if nobody scored, went on penetration rule. So each team got one possession, and whoever got to the farthest down the field. And so we got to like the 35 and they got to like the 21 or something like that. And we lost the game. And the funny thing is they went on to make the playoffs and we went on to finish 3-7. And it's like that thing killed us.
Matters.
Just tanked us.
Stinking matters.
So anyway,
let's talk about tonight's episode, Joe. We're doing, title of the episode. If your offensive line is getting overpowered, so now we're going to teach you how to build a dominant O-line. Starting out talking about ASKA with a little bit extra on the ASKA. We're going to simplify schemes to focus on execution, which is something I've been so big into the last couple of years, and develop linemen to love their craft, which I think they all still ask to be tight end. So
they're all still going to ask to be tight ends. I just need them to pretend for a while. Yeah,
that's right.
I'm never going to change that. They all want to be a tight end, even if you don't use tight ends.
Let's jump into your level up, Joe.
I think that I'll use this one because if I don't, I'll forget. I have a lot of level ups. We've had a big last few days, but we'll stick with one. About 3 weeks ago, 19 days ago, I haven't done it today. I'm a little under the weather. So whenever I've had a moment, it's been back to the couch. I started a speed reading course called Quick Reader. It's a guy named Jim Quick. He wrote a book called Limitless. It's KWIK. And he does a lot of different, memory and, brain function and that kind of stuff. And he has a speed reading course. And I've known of him for a long time. He's kind of, been around and I've looked at him. I've done other speed reading courses. I've done books. I've done, watched YouTube videos and stuff. So I've been dabbling at times more so in speed reading, but I started this course and reading my normal way. And I just, I have a ton of books. It's not even books. I subscribe to newsletters for marketing and business and things like that. And they start to pile up and they're expensive. Like if you don't, so if you don't read it, you're like, I got this $100 newsletter sitting here. Just like, I haven't read it. Like that's stupid, but and there's lots of, just tons and tons of books I want to read and I want to get into. And so I want to be able to process these faster. And I think I've talked about some of the fantasy books and things that I've been reading, and they're long. They're 1,000 pages, and I want to know what's sometimes you get to a point and you're like, I just want to know what happens. So like, can I just rent the movie? So I did. Which, by the way, the movies, I'll just tell you, the Harry Potter books are significantly better than the movies. I'll be that guy. So anyway, I decided finally to jump on. It's about $200, so I decided to get into the course. And it is great. It is really not like a lot of the other traditional speed reading that I've done. It is very much, he teaches, what I like about it is it reminds me of Dale and it reminds me of a lot of the things that we do, but he's got a speed reading progression. So the first third of it, first week, I guess, so 21-day program, the first week was really focused on speed. And I noticed, because this is a very popular program and there's a lot of comments on the videos and stuff. And I noticed that a lot of people struggle with this stuff. Like they struggle with the idea of like, just go fast. Don't worry about don't do this with a book that you're reading for school or for work. Like pick out a fiction book. Like I'm reading a Star Wars book that I've put off. I read Star Wars Aftermath and I'm going to start the third one, which were like the first 3 books after Disney took over. So I've never cared about them, but it's actually not bad. But I don't care if I don't get every piece of the story. It's a drill. The book is for drills, really. And so it starts off with speed for the first week and then moves to comprehension. And it's all sorts of drills and techniques. And I feel like a lot of speed reading that I've done before was like, here's how you do it, go do it. And you're like, you just kind of beat your head against the wall. And I mean, there are drills, there are warm-up drills. There are, for getting your brain focused and getting your eyes moving, because your eyes have to follow it's all finger-based, following your finger sliding, and your eyes have to move with that. And, you start to, basically what you do is you start to read in chunks of words. You start to see phrases instead of words. And if this all sounds like you're not getting anything, it actually works, because if you think about when you were a little kid and you learned to read, you read each letter. This is the way he explains it. You read each letter. You were like, boy, and you're like, oh, it's boy. Like now, when if you're an average reader, you see boy, you don't go BOY, you just see boy right on the page.
Right.
Like, that's the word. So you start to progress now to seeing, the lazy brown fox as the lazy brown fox, and not the lazy brown fox, right? You just see this block of words. So what I've found through it is, like, you really can get very high comprehension, see everything, process it. Your brain can process much faster. There's still speeds. Like, if I was reading a technical journal, it's going to be slower than if I'm reading a, fiction book, or if I'm reading something I've read before. But I've gone from, I think, I've got my scores here. You track it, every day you do a 2-minute test. And I started out at 216 words per minute, which is kind of average, maybe even a little below. And I've been bouncing around between 850 and 1,000, that range, which is wild. And with comprehension, using tools, and I still got a couple days left. But so it went from 7 days of speed, then it's like a lot of comprehension work. So you have to trust it in the first part, that, like, I'm just learning to, move fast, and I'm not going to get everything. And there's drills that are set up that way. So, like, you read something for 4 minutes. You read it at your normal speed for 4 minutes. Then you do it for 3 minutes, and you got to get to the end. Then you do it for 2 minutes, and you got to get to the end. Then you do it for 1 minute, and you're not reading. You're just like, because you can't, but you get used to that speed. And it's a lot like Dale. Like, you build this progression, and there's
awesome.
drills. So it is. If anybody wants to do a speed reading thing, and I don't even going from 215 or whatever to, I went from 215 to 330 on the third day to 600 on, like, the fourth day. Something just, unlocks, something clicks. And that's kind of, it's like, you'll do, like, you'll have bumps. At least I have, and that's kind of what he explains. Is like, you get to the, 600 words, 700 words, and then you do that for a few days, and it's like something clicks, and you go to 1,000. But most people in the comments and stuff, they're in the 300-400 range. I think part of it is I've done a lot of this, but I've tried it before. But it is awesome. It is awesome. If anybody wants to do speed reading, it's Quick Reader, KWIK, Jim Quick. And there's a book called Limitless that you can check out if you don't want to spend the $200 up front. And there's also he's got YouTube videos that'll give you so that's how I got into it. Was I found him on YouTube. I watched the first video, which is basically like, he gives you a trick to speed up your reading, and I tried it, and I was like, cool, that works. And, like, here's $200. Let's go.
I love it. It's like a 400% improvement.
It's big. And it's legitimately, like, I would say that and there's also one of the things you have to know when you do this is, like, last night I didn't have time to do it till almost midnight. I was tired. So last night when I did the test, it was 7:20. Right. So if you're tired, it ain't happening. If I do it at noon or something.
I listened to Elon talk about, of course, he's a gamer too, right? And he was talking about, like, if you ever log on to your favorite, whatever your first person shooter is, and, like, sometimes you're just going, right? And you just kill everybody, and it's a lot of fun. And you're not a big first person shooter, right?
I'm not. Yeah. Stories and yeah.
But they talk about, you'll be on there sometimes, and you're like, is my internet off? What's up? Because you're just not on top of your game. And it's just it's your mental. You're tired. You don't know it.
Yeah.
And it could be noon. It could be 2 p.m., 5 p.m. It doesn't matter when it is. You could just be not up to snuff today.
Yeah.
But he thought, and he says that happens in business all the time. When you work your people to death and you've got these weird hours, and I don't know, when people are just sitting in front of screens for no reason, like, they're going to get tired. They're not going to get as much done. So
there's a lot. And then, it'll go to everything that you're doing. Like, is this something you want to do? But also when you're tired, like, the studies that, I don't know how factual it is, but that if you haven't slept enough, it's the equivalent of being legally drunk. It's like, you can't read as fast. I don't care what you think. You don't read as well. You don't think as well. You don't drive as well. You may be more creative because you've lost all inhibition, but that's about it.
For my level up, first of all, I have to talk about being tired. This last weekend was drill weekend. That's why all my face is gone. I actually shaved my mustache when I got home. I was like, it's time. It's time. It's gotten too ridiculous. I didn't get any sleep Friday night. I was up like 30, close to 40 hours or something, armying, and it was pretty tough. I felt illegally drunk. But my real level up is I finally got some help in my military duties. I have been, and it really ties into last week's episode when we talked about, I feel like I'm coaching alone, because the military side, I have been for just over a year. Like I'm the military people, they'll know I'm like a platoon leader and the platoon sergeant, and I'm having to play squad leader. Like there's only so much stuff you can do, and you get divided so much. I wasn't proud of my work, which is really, I don't like that.
Right.
I was doing no one any favors I couldn't keep up with the youngin' ones because they needed more development and more leadership, and my leadership needed more out of me. I was getting a lot done, but man, I could have been so much better. And so we picked up an NCO, and I'm very excited to have her on the team. Not only that, but after one weekend, all the soldiers came up to me and were like, she's basically a female version of you. And I was like, nice. Awesome. So I'm going to let you learn things through your mistakes and I'm going to guide you, but she's not a micromanager, which is freaking awesome. I don't do well under that, and I try not to be a micromanager, and I don't know many people that do perform great under that type of leadership. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything, but I need some freedom and ability to go out and kind of do my thing and give me guidelines or handrails or a goal and let me roll. Anyway, so that's kind of what I did to her, and just let her know that I'm down here to tell you how to do things or what to do. And she knocked it out of the park. So that was a lot of weight off my shoulders when I could finally go, okay, my soldiers have great leadership now, which I was supposed to be providing and just didn't have the time. And now I can focus on the big boy stuff. So yeah, it was a great weekend. We got a ton of stuff done. Everything was just so much quicker, so much freaking quicker, which meant I picked up a lot of teaching duties, but that's kind of what I've been supposed to do anyway, is helping develop the entire company, not just my platoon. So I look forward to being in this new role and kind of see where it goes. It's good to have some help. So if you are a coach that you feel like you're coaching alone, dude, I don't know how to tell you even to hire. I didn't hire this person. The Army gave them to me. It just was perfect. So I don't know. If you feel like you're doing it all alone, find somebody to help take some weight off of you. If that means getting rid of people that aren't pulling their weight, by all means, figure it out. But
it's really hard in coaching. I know from being a head coach in a rural area, it was really hard. It's not like if I go to hire someone, like if you decide you didn't want to do this anymore, I could put out for somebody to host a podcast, and I would get a lot of people who were interested. I would get people who were professional radio guys. I would get people who were, retired coaches. I would get young coaches. I would be able to go through them all, and I would be able to select somebody that I really like, and then I would be able to cut them loose if it wasn't working. Right. And the thing that we deal with in coaching, and this is where the micromanaging, sometimes there's nothing else to do, is, our youth coaches know it 100%, is we don't get to hire from a big pool unless you're at a high level. And so the micromanaging is a lack of trust. And I've done it, and I probably should have had more trust, but so I've been guilty of it. I'm not saying that anybody's wrong doing it, but it's a lack of trust. And, you're not sure if these people are the right people. But more times than not, I agree with you that if you will let go, you will get significantly better performance. But what you have to do is what you said. You have to teach. You have to teach what it's supposed to look like under you. You have to put those guardrails up. This is the parameters we're working within. Now go.
I watched a really neat video from, I know we need to move on. We're 20 minutes into an episode here and we're still in level up, but I think it's important. Pete Carroll did it was a high school class, or maybe it was I don't know. I couldn't really tell. I don't remember. But he got to talking about, someone asked him, and this was just a clip out of all I saw, but asked him like, hey, can you go through the differences in your style of leadership and like, what are these different styles of leadership? So he basically said, look, there's two extremes. Bill Belichick is kind of on one end. He is the authoritarian. He is micromanagement. It is going to be this way, my way, or the highway. Once again, nothing wrong with that. Now,
one of my games.
He has a huge pool to hire from, and he's still that way. And
right.
Time will tell if he's got all them rings from Tom Brady or if he's really that good of a coach. I
don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think he's obviously a pretty good coach.
Touche. It takes both. I was kind of being a smart aleck there. But then they said, kind of the other end is me and what I do. And he's like, we're not going to micromanage anyone. I'm going to let people struggle. And then when they come up and have a question, I'm going to say, I don't know, critically think about it. Just get a couple things, like a couple ideas. How would you fix this? And if their ideas suck, I'll help them. And if not, I'll say, cool, go do that and learn something. And they talked about like Bobby Knight as an extreme authoritarian. And then, there's some guys in the middle. So it was just really neat to see that, a breakdown of it from both of those guys are Super Bowl winning head coaches. Both of those guys have done it, been great for years and years. And there isn't one size fits all. Same way in leadership and everything you do. Obviously, football is a great place to tie back in. So
yep.
Let's move on here. Last week's topic, we talked, I feel like I'm coaching alone, which is kind of what was kind of weird. We just recorded that and I went to a weekend and finally got out of that. So next week's topic, we'll be talking about stopping spread offenses, or really any offense, having a defensive system that plays against whatever you're going to see. Really just kind of can't keep up with the spread offense is the main idea, but we got
to have some sort of focus. Yeah,
that's right. One quick thing, if this podcast helps you coach better, help us help others. Share it with another coach, a parent on your staff, a parent or your staff, anybody who loves the game and wants to keep learning. I think that's what this podcast is going to do well for. Let's pay the bills and get in here.
This is the last time that I'm going to do this because we have a brand new ebook coming out this week-ish, maybe beginning next week. So you've got the ultimate defensive system, or excuse me, that's not it. This new the difference between a championship defense and a defense struggling every Friday night is not just talent and it's not luck. It's a system. Without a system, you scramble every week trying to fix problems on the fly. Your players are confused. Your assistants are not on the same page, and your defense is constantly playing on its heels. I've worked with over 10,000 football coaches, and many are making the same mistakes. They're overcomplicating football, running a sack of plays with no reason behind it, just calling front stunts, blitzes, and coverages from the seat of their pants. Once we get those coaches putting a real defensive system in place, everything changes. Players play faster, coaches have more confidence, and you start to win more football games. That's why I put together no longer my latest free guide, What You Need to Know to Build the Ultimate Defensive Football Coaching System. And inside that guide, you will get the blueprint for building a defensive system that works so you can simplify your playbook, get your players to buy in, and take control of the game. You can download your free copy right now at joedanielfootball.com/system to take the guesswork out of coaching, build your ultimate defensive system, and turn your football program around this season.
We all know speed wins games. The real question is, are you fast enough? Speed changes everything. It turns average plays into touchdowns, good players into game breakers. But here's the truth. Real speed isn't just natural. It's trained. At Athletic Speed and Movement, we show athletes how to get faster, quicker, and more explosive using proven methods that translate directly to the field. Our system was built by Del Basquet, who's done it at the highest level. And it works for all athletes, regardless what level they're at. So whether you're a coach looking to elevate your team or a parent wanting to give your athlete an edge, this is where speed starts. Go to athleticspeedmovement.com, athleticspeedandmovement.com, and learn how to build real speed that shows up on game day. Don't just play the game, outrun it. I like that. I do like that. All right, let's get in here. Part one. So we're talking about building a more dominant offensive line. And I love the progression that you put in here to Joe. If y'all don't know, Joe writes the three main parts we talk about every night because Joe's been doing this for 15 years and he's way better at it than I am. But I'm such a fundamentalist now and a foundationalist. Like, I just want to see people start with the basics and build dominance in that way. And so when you put ASKA on here and then you just add a little to it, I was like, man, it's so easy. It's so much easier to think about how do you build a dominant line. Well, you're already doing it. You should be doing it with every player on defense, every player on offense. They should all be dominant because you gave them four things got to do every play. ASKA, alignment, stance, key read, and assignment. In offense, you can, we change it up a little bit, but having just another letter, I believe I asked you, and it's C, ASKCA, so it's still ASKA. You just get an extra in there.
Probably should be ASCKA if we're going to be really
probably.
But it's fine.
Yeah, it is fine. I like it this way. So talk to me about this additional C in ASKA and how that helps me make a dominant O-line.
So as we looked at ASKA has been such a difference maker, alignment, stance, key read assignment on the defensive side of the ball, starting from a pre-snap checklist that would learn that concept from, I think I learned it from TCU, but like I swear it was around before that. But that was where I really, but again, I've talked about it before. Every time I Google it and try to find the origins of it, I'm the one that comes up because I've published so much stuff about it. So I can't find the origins of it. The ASKA model progressed from being a pre-snap checklist, the way that other coaches were using it, to realizing that in the Coach Simple philosophy, this is actually the guy, we talked a minute ago about putting those guardrails up. This is the guardrails for coaches to be Coach Simple. And if you can't state alignment, stance, key read assignment rules in base defense and then in every defense that you call, how does it change it? And that's, if we can do that, we can teach this to anybody. And so, alignment, the progression on defense was alignment, where do they stand? Stance, how do they stand there? Key read, who do they look at? Assignment, what do they do when that key read tells them run or pass? And so, they're really simple. An inside linebacker in a 4-2-5 defense, he's a 30 technique. You got to teach him what that means. But, outside shade of the guard, 5 yards off the ball. And so he's a 30 technique is his alignment. And then his stance is a staggered stance, butt down, chest up, hands are loose, dominant foot forward. And then we include the read step or whatever there is in there, the initial pedal, depending on the position. If it's a corner, it's his initial pedal. If it's linebacker, it might be a read step. If it's a safety, it's usually don't go anywhere if he's in zone, slow pedal if he's man, don't go till you know. So all of that gets incorporated in stance. Key read is who I look at, who I read. So if I'm that linebacker, I'm alignment, 30 technique, stance, staggered linebacker stance. Key read, I'm key reading, primary key read near guard to near back. And then we always have a primary key read and a secondary key read. Sometimes it's, people use different key reads, but we teach a primary and a secondary. In some cases, the primary is the backfield. It doesn't change though. So when I say sometimes the primary is the backfield and the secondary is the guard, that's 4-3 is the main one where it's primary, backfield, secondary, primary, backfield, secondary, guard. You can do it in the 3-3. You have to have somebody behind, somebody to protect you back there. So the 3 linebacker stuff kind of gives you that. If you get because you're going to get more wrong reads from the guard, from the running back read. And it's harder to teach the peripheral vision to pick up the back. So, yeah. And then the assignment is, okay, if I get a run read, spill, my umbrella run fit rules. If I get a pass read, if it's cover 3, I'm 12 to 14 yards deep on the hash, whatever. So I can lay all that out. And that is what a linebacker does in a base defense. And that's what we're going to work on. We're going to get great at that. I think the best thing you can do is get great at the base defense. So we took that. It's been really successful. We created the levers principle out of that, where we would look at that ASKA and go, okay, each one of these is a lever. And so with 4 levers and 11 players on defense, I have 44 levers that I can be pulling at any time. And levers are adjustments. They're things that I can change, small changes usually, things that I can change that will make an impact. And so for each position, I look each week at usually 1 or 2 levers. So I might look for 1 lever, which is just like, what is the thing that's going to make the biggest difference right now? So kind of go to the one thing concept of what is the one thing that if we fix this, everything else gets better. Usually initially it's alignment, because alignment is the easiest lever to pull. So we came up with that levers concept, and then we looked for the low hanging fruit. What's the easy lever to pull that's going to make the biggest impact? Easiest thing to do. Because most coaches go straight to assignment, one of the hardest levers, or they're changing key reads every week, one of the hardest levers. We look to first alignment, which is like anybody can just stand in a different place. This isn't hard, and put them in positions to perform. So we took the ASKA concept, the levers concept, and I looked at offense and I went, how does this apply to offense? Because it's so good, I got to be able to do the same thing on offense. And so when I looked at offense, alignment, not as obvious as defense for some positions. So alignment for an offensive lineman, right? What's our base alignment? Well, our base alignment is, the center is holding the ball. Like that's his alignment. Like here's your alignment, ball. The guards their ear hole is even with the belt of the center. They have an 18-inch split. That's their alignment. So that's pretty consistent. There are levers that we can pull on the offensive line.
For sure.
Short yardage, we can move up. Passing downs, we can move back. Zone, we can move. We can smart split. So there's lots of things that we can do. We had Tony DeMeo on, talked about smart splits and stuff a few years ago. So there are levers to pull on the offensive line with alignment, but it's not as obvious. Quarterback obviously has 3 levers, right? It's under center, pistol, gun. But then how deep is the pistol? How deep is the gun? And then there's stance for the offensive line. So we teach a balanced stance. Balanced stance, we put whichever hand is comfortable because we block right and left. So to me, it doesn't matter. But we do a 3-point stance. Some coaches, and then there's levers. We could do a 2-point stance in passing situations. We could go to a 4-point stance when we just want to reach out and run quarterback sneak. We could stagger the feet if somebody's having trouble kicking or something like that. There are things that we could do. We've certainly played with the stance of the center as much as anything when their snaps are off and stuff. I've had centers that were like, all their snaps are going to the right, and I just turn them. I ain't got time to fix this right now. Just turn. Turn. All right, there we go. Is the ball getting where it needs to go? Great. As a quarterback, by the way, it's a quarterback alignment lever too. Snaps are all going to the right, so don't stand in the middle. Just slide over to the right. It's okay if you're standing in A gap. It's all right. We should get the snap. We'll work on it in practice. I don't know what's happening with his snaps right now, but just slide over. So then we go stance. And then it got a little bit different because the key read isn't the same type of thing. And so initially I took key read out and changed it to ASCA and said communication. And I took key read out entirely. And I didn't like that. But communication was the C, which is when we get aligned. So again, the pre-snap checklist concept, right? I line up, put my hand down, or, in our case, the stance would be on cadence. So we would go ready and this hand snaps down, or ready would be a 2-point stance, set the hand snap down, go, we move. So, however you want to do that, but that's the stance, the whole process of the stance. But the communication is, okay, if it's zone, we're counting to 3. If it's power, we're making our bear calls, our down calls, our tiger calls. We're making all of our calls. We're making our communications. We're talking. And so I wanted that to be a major emphasis for the offensive line. It's also a major offense. It's an emphasis for – it's one of those things that as you go through the positions, you start to go like, whoa, like the running back doesn't necessarily – now some teams have the running back call the protection. I don't like that. But the running back has to hear the protection call, right? He has to know who he's responsible for. So we call out his guy in the pass protection. So he's got that responsibility. The quarterback obviously can make audibles. He can make checks. He's got to communicate with everybody about their alignment. So one of his communications is check everybody's alignment and fix them if they need to be. He's communicating with receivers, and receivers are communicating back. Uncovered throws, check route adjustments. If they press you, don't run a hitch, run a fade, that kind of stuff. So that communication was the start. And then assignment obviously is like, okay, once we've communicated, I know now that I'm doing a bear with the guard and we're going to combo to the backer and all that sort of stuff. That's my assignment. So the assignment doesn't hinge as much on what they do. I just need to know what but then I was missing one little thing, which was the eyes. So it's kind of in communication, but I'm really big on the emphasis of the aiming point and the footwork. And so in combining that, which I think the first 2 steps are how you win on offensive line, it became, we got to put key back in. So I just call it key instead of key read, but it doesn't matter. It is. So if I'm doing a zone right, I am getting my back. We use the big surface where we tuck the thumb into the belly button, and we don't, instead of using hands, because our players, small school, they tend to play multiple sports. They're not in the weight room as much. We end up playing a lot of young guys. We're not bench pressers. So, I take that out. Like if I had a 350-pound bench presser and he's just used to using his hands, like I wouldn't bother him. But we use a big surface where it's the pec, front deltoid, bicep, forearm, you tuck the thumb into the belly button. And I would say, we have an aiming point of backside number on play side number. And so that's the key. It's the aiming point. So originally I was like, well, it could be, ASKA, and I didn't like that. So it's ASKA, so I just made it the key just to make the thing work. But so shoehorned a little bit, but that's the other part of it is where do I stand? Alignment. How do I stand? Stance. What do I look at? Who am I working with? who do I have, or excuse me, should be communication key. So it's who am I working with, who am I, what's our communication, and then it is what's my aiming point, what's my key, and that's going to determine my footwork, because my footwork is based off of that aiming point, and then the assignment is the combo to the linebacker, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it actually fits really well because we're running a lot of gap scheme, and we like to dabble in some buck sweep, and you have to read that. You got to read the block ahead of you, right? Just like a running back, you got to read and cut up underneath him. So, and if you're the front side puller, we're going to allow a log here and there. So you've got to, is that guy so deep in that I can pin him inside and log him? So I think the key read fits perfect.
It found to be very important. Yeah,
absolutely. And then we get in, we like to keep our shoulders square if we're kind of like one back power in it, or if we're going to, we know it's going to hit a gap. There's no reason to turn your shoulders to turn and then turn back around a circle. So, we'll skip pull it there and keep your eyes. So, I think all of them still fit really well. I do love, and I've never really thought about it being ASKA before, but we move our alignment all over the place, right?
Yes.
We smart split it some. If we're just really struggling to plug a gap, we'll tighten it up. We'll let our pulling guard stay a little closer to the center if he needs to, and tighten that back, right? So there's so many things that you can do. I guess it all kind of fits under smart splits, but just it's more directed than.
It's the same thing. It's alignment. It's the same.
Yeah.
You can call it smart splits. You want to call it, it's alignment. It's where do I stand? How do I stand? What do I look at?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And the communication and assignment is kind of I could say, well, communication and assignment is all one big deal, but what you will find, for those of you, and I talked about this on Coach Call, we were Chalk Talk Q&A last night. We do them every Monday night from August through October into the first week of November, at least. All of this seems simple for the offensive line. When you go, like, if you've been in the pistol power offense system, if you know the pistol power offense system, and you go, well, zone, anybody can run zone. All they have to do is count to 3. And I tell them that all that you have to do to be able to play in this system is count to 3.
Yeah.
In theory. That, because you have to count to 3, and people have to talk, because if the center doesn't call out the 0, how do I know who the 1 is? And if we don't call it out, then we can't get our combos. We can't know who the 1 and the 2 are, and how, we end up, nobody says anything, and both guys think that's the 1, and the 2 goes unblocked.
Right.
So the communication really is, I think, the critical piece of all this. I say the first 2 steps wins the block, and that's true once the ball is snapped. But I don't think you can win many games up front if you're not communicating. Now, I know some teams are hurry up, no huddle, and they get to the line and they just go, and it's built into that system. I like to huddle. I like our offensive linemen to get out there. I talk to them about this. I tell our quarterbacks to slow down this time period. And there are times when we go, you got to know it's time to go fast. Get up there and just go. We've seen this picture before. But this is the time period, that pre-snap time period is their chance to problem solve. I'm not there. You're going to see fronts. They're not going to. That's why I get on them in a scout team. If the scout team misaligns and they tell the guy where to go, hey, you're supposed to be over here. No, we'll fix him. I got a scout team coach over there. That's his job. And I'll probably yell at the scout team coach. The scout team coach will yell at him if I'm running the offense. And or I won't yell at him. I'll say, hey, fix him, because I know what the picture is, and they don't always see the line and everything. But they're going to make misalignments. They're going to do things we didn't expect, and you've got to get up there and problem solve. And that communication aspect, that is the problem solving. That is, we've got 7 guys with a tight end and an H-back. We're running a run play. They've got 6 or 7 guys in the box. Do we have them all accounted for? And that's what we have to know. Is everybody accounted for? In my view, this is why communication is so important. Communication and aiming point, communication and key are so important. If you do this right, know who to block, know how to get there, take the right first 2 steps, you can block anybody. You can have positive yardage on every play, and the timing of the play is right in everything that we talk about.
We're gonna use this to segue straight into our next point, which is we're gonna talk about simplifying schemes to focus on execution. I think the system that we run down here is very similar to what you do, but we can keep it very simple for our offensive line, and they run I'm talking 5 plays, and that's with their pass pro counted in, right? We're not doing very much with our offensive line. A couple of the smart ones might have to learn the play both ways because we might go tackle over or something, and now then instead of being a puller or a kick in the backside, now they're a down blocker. But aside from that, we really keep things focused, and it doesn't limit us anywhere else on offense. We do some of the most chaotic stuff you've ever seen on offense, and our O-line's running 5 plays. So, the ability to simplify that down, you talk about focusing on execution here. It still comes back to that communication, all that pre-snap stuff you just talked about, that pre-snap time, problem solve it, execute these 5 plays, whatever they are. And I think that's really good. I think that's a great. I'd read something this week from Rich Rodriguez up at West Virginia, okay? And he's doing his install, and they're talking about his big thing was tempo is non-negotiable. I don't know if you saw his little news clip or not, but basically he says, I know they're going to screw stuff up and install, but we're going to learn it at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing that much. And if they learn the formation and the scheme and all that at 100 miles an hour, they're going to learn it better than if I just fumbled through it and drug it out and it took 6 days to get in 3 plays with a couple formations. He's like, no, we're going out there. We're going fast now. The tempo is non-negotiable. And I love that because that's kind of the mentality we have. It's good to hear that from a top tier coach. I know, I think pretty sure it's his second stint back with West Virginia. So they thought enough of him to bring him back, but we'll see what his success looks like this year. Maybe his kids can't run a play. I don't know, but I bet they'll figure something out. And I just love that tempo is non-negotiable. So simplify it and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So I think a lot of coaches are afraid to make mistakes in practice. And if we make a mistake in practice, that's, this idea of perfect practices and stuff. Like I said, we huddle in the game. I go as fast as I can in practice, and I don't want to. I want to get as many plays, as many reps, and I'll coach off the film. So practice is much, much faster than the game, and it has to be. You only got 27 kids. You've got to go fast because you got to get them in shape to go play because they're going to play both ways. Most of them, the good ones are all playing both ways. The ones who are, your 11th guy on offense is probably your 15th guy on defense, right? He's not a starter, but he's probably going to play. Very few guys don't play at all the other way. I mean, even if you try to protect your quarterback, he's still in there in a passing situation at the end of the game, right? You're like, yes, we got to do this. So the go fast element of it, but simplifying your schemes doesn't make your offense simple. And I think that if you look at what we do, we have 2 blocking schemes on the run game. So we have zone and gap. Our inside zone and outside zone and truck toss use the same count system, count to 3, with the truck toss changes 2 guys. The outside zone changes aiming point. So you teach inside zone, backside number on play side number. You teach outside zone, backside number to the play side armpit. And, it's flatter steps and all that. So the footwork changes when the key changes. The combo changes, but the count stays the same. And again, we get the right guy, we take the right aiming point, everything works itself out. Truck toss just changes who pull the tackle. And then we have power and counter. It's one blocking scheme. Power uses a set of rules. Counter uses the exact same set of rules, and it swaps the guard and the H-back. So that is, and the backfield stays the same. The receivers stay the same. So we use a number system. And as much as I like the number system because of the simplicity, I might go away from it just because kids seem I don't know what happened. I know what happened. There was a pandemic and they were all at home. Kids are just flummoxed by numbers now. It's like 24 and they're like, whoa, we're doing math. And I'm like, whoa, it's 4. It's 4. It's just a number, but they're just numbers, just like, whoa. Which drives me insane because it's such a good system. It's Bill's system, but power right. You want to call it power right, call it power right. You want to give it a name. We did, New England would be power to the left and Patriot would be power to the right, that kind of stuff. Football teams for run names, NBA teams for passing names and stuff. Name it. You don't have to use that numbering system. I love it. I'll talk in it probably till the day I die, but it's just like when I call the guy a 7 technique, I then stop and explain that he's a 6I and I know that, but Bear Bryant, for God's sake, Bear Bryant said it, Bill Mountjoy said it, this is it. So the key there is, you mentioned, we want to do this, we want to do that. This is a very good practice to get into. I use all of that numbering, all of those words. That's one of the things I like about the numbering because I can't just call it power right. I call it 24. So if I run 24, that's power right. That's the 2 back, the running back, running 4. 4 is not the 4 hole. 4 is a blocking scheme. 4 is power blocking scheme to the right. And that's where they get confused. But If I run 24 counter, that is just the GH counter. If I run 24 GT counter, that tells us the guard and the tackle are pulling instead of the guard and the H. If I run 24 buck, that tells us that both guards are pulling, but it's still down, down, kick out, wrap. So the practice is I do all scout team plays. And as the offensive coordinator, I run the scout team. I design the scout team as much when I'm doing this, and I put it on the wristbands and everything because I want to go fast. I want to, as a defensive coach, I would want to. Now, again, coaches don't like mistakes, and some coaches aren't comfortable going fast. But I would design every play that we wanted to work against. And, we'll pick the top 3 formations, the top 3 plays, whatever, so 3, 4, 5 run plays. And I'm going to run those with 24 buck, 24 GT, 20, I'm just going to tag the play. It's still 24. And so for everybody but the guys at the tag, and they've got wristbands that say like pull and kick right. It doesn't say 24 GT. But in my mind, I can create that play. And so if I sit there one day and go, you know what, my tackle pull, and I want to go in there, I want to go 2x2, 10 personnel, and I want to run GT counter with the quarterback. So he's going to fake, boom, and he's going to follow the tackle. Simple. I've already got that tag done. I can run double wing plays. I can run, our formation tags are all there too. I can run superpower and all that sort of stuff. I can do all of that just with tags. Zone, same thing. I can create zone read. I can create midline stuff. I can create, I can create whatever I want. I can create reads. I can create all sorts of stuff off of zone. And then we use the same zone count system, like you mentioned. That's our pass protection count. Obviously, pass protection is different. But again, if you can count to 3 and communicate it, we can run our pass protection. And if we know which guy to get and we don't let the quarterback stand back there and hold the ball, I can at least throw 3-step. At the very least, I can get in the way and throw 3-step. And then, we get a little bit better when we throw 5-step. So that's where I think that you take this, you take football, and there's only so many schemes. I can run a zone lead, which is essentially an ISO. I can read anybody. I can just tag it with who we want to read. I can tag RPOs onto it, no problem. These aren't plays. These are tags. And I know you do the same thing. And I can dress it up with shifts and motions. And at the end of the day, the offensive line, all I have to do is tell them, don't listen to that. That part doesn't matter to you. What matters to you is 4. And at the end of the day, want to run power read, it's 4, right? Doesn't matter. They don't care that the H-back isn't going to kick that guy. And I got to teach the H-back that. But those 5 guys, it's 4. It's the same rules. Power read, power, counter, GT, GH, buck. Obviously changes a little bit because of the 2 guard and you're downing, but it's a little bit different. But, we're not a buck team, so we don't have to worry about that. I've done veer. I've done everything. So, and by doing it with the scout team, I know how to make those adjustments and how to do those things. Unbalanced. You mentioned unbalanced. Like if I want to flop my tackle over, by the way, I've been lucky because my tackles the last few years, I've had a smart tackle and I've had a tackle who wants to be a tight end. So the smart one, when he flops over, I go, do what the tight end normally does when he's next to you. Like you're the tight end now. And the one who wants to be a tight end, I go, congratulations, you're a tight end. So this is your time to shine. Can't run route, but
down block.
Because you're down blocking.
You're good.
Yeah, but yeah, so like this, if you can do this, maybe you can play tight end for us. Like, oh, okay. So yeah, everything that you want to do, everything, just simplify your schemes and build everything around making it as simple as possible for the offensive line. You are committing a crime if no one on your staff understands offensive line and you're yelling. I have coaches come in all the time and go through this. And I sent an email. I have a couple coaches respond that were like, I never thought about that. It's like, if you're yelling at the offensive line to stay on their blocks, you're doing it wrong. Because if the timing of the play is right, you should be working to minimize the amount of time the offensive line needs to stay in their blocks. How fast can this play hit? You don't want, in some cases you want some slow play, but like not much. I think we really got poisoned back in the day with the like slow to fast through teaching from Alex Gibbs with the zone and everything. And it's like, yeah, but slow to was Terrell Davis's slow. And also there were NFL all pros blocking in front of him. It's like, you need to hit this thing. Like, it's not that slow. Like, if you teach a kid to go, like, and it's usually alignment. It's usually alignment levers. I mean, that's where it comes in. That's one of the biggest things we do with running backs is adjust alignment levers. With quarterbacks, we adjust their footwork, their stance, so that it hits faster. Same thing with running back, we adjust the stance. Everything. If you're letting your quarterback stand back there for 4 seconds and he's getting sacked and you're at the offensive line, you're committing a crime. If you're letting the quarterback stand back there for 4 seconds and 7-on-7, you're committing a crime. 2.8. Get the ball out. Blow the whistle. Sack. Well, I don't want to lose. We don't do it in tournaments and stuff, but like in your local 7-on-7s, you can't hold the ball back there, dude. Throw the ball. Because I got 5 guys that are working their butt off. Nobody will ever know their name. Nobody knows what they do. All that happens is when you hold the ball too long, they get yelled at. When the running back stands 9 yards deep and takes forever and a day to get to the aiming point, and the hole opens, and we talked about this before. You see it in the NFL too. I mean, you see it everywhere. You go with the hole closed. That's not the offensive line's fault. That wasn't a great play by the defense. There was a hole. He should have been getting there as the hole was forming and going through it, not getting there after. That's usually either a snap. Sometimes it can be the offensive line fault because it's a bad snap, and that screws up your timing. And that's why under center is superior in most cases at high school and youth level. For various reasons, you don't always go under center, but if you want great timing, under center is better. You don't have those bad snaps. But
I love watching Coach Caduti talk zone ball because, like, I'm an Alex Gibbs fan too.
Sure, everybody. I mean, by the time he was the only one, so we had to be.
Yeah. Coach Caduti's talking zone, and you're watching his film, and his kids are running into a wall, and then there's just that second. You know what I mean? And it's like, it splits, the hole opens, and he just talks trust it. And you see his running back just slip it and go. And you're like, holy crap, he ran into nothing. He ran into the back of a lineman is what it should have been.
There as it's forming.
And the hole opens and away he goes. And it's like, just having that patience and trust is crazy. Being able to coach that is amazing.
We teach in the offensive play caller system, we teach 3 levels of play calling. We teach predictive, pre-snap, and post-snap. And predictive is based on what they did before. Pre-snap is based on the picture they're showing you now. And post-snap is, option, passing concepts where we read what they give us and we, put the ball where we want to put it. Most coaches would put zone as just a play. But to me, zone is a post-snap read, right? And what we want in zone, in gap schemes, we create the hole. And you really want him following. So let's say we're running power. You really want that back, with his hand on the butt of the guard, right?
Right.
Because he's getting there right there with them. Because the guard, one of the things about power is very rarely does the guard not get through. So why isn't your back getting through? It's a timing issue. So, I mean, sometimes the guard doesn't get through, but most of the time he does. It's a timing issue. And in zone, you are not dictating where the hole is going. You are letting them decide where the hole is going to go, and you are just displacing those bodies. And so what you have to learn in zone is how to displace bodies. And we work through our bird walk drill on, if this guy goes this way and this guy goes this way, when you come off, you mentioned staying square on a one back power. We stay square on the combo, but let's say the backer scrapes over to the right and the tackle comes off to get the backer. Well, the guard should now just turn his feet, accelerate, and push that tackle as far out as he can and create that hole. He's letting him. If that 3-tech decides to make that, I tell him, turn into a down block. If he steps that way, if they all step that way because they all think the ball's going here, turn into a down block. Use their momentum against them and create those seams. And again, you don't have to be strong to do that. Because either gap or zone, you don't have to be strong. And again, I will emphasize, I am not a buck sweep. I don't know a lot of those plays as well, but I know you use a lot of down blocking and everything. So it's the same kind of thing. In zone, we don't have to be strong because we are displacing you. We're taking you where you want to go, and the back has to make the cut, make the read. It just needs to happen quickly. In gap, we don't have to be super duper strong because at the point of attack, we either are using what we call a bear or a tiger. So we're either using a guard tackle double team or we're using a tackle tight end double team. So that's a combo, which we don't come off of unless a backer steps up in the hole immediately. So we have a combo 2-on-1, which gives us an advantage because it's essentially a double team. And then everybody else is down blocking. So they have the advantage of angles. And so Nobody is being asked. Like, if you're asking your guys to line up, this is why, take the sled, plant some flowers around it, like, sell it to another school, sell it to a rival school, and let them spend all day on it. Get rid of the sled, just like all this stuff. Get rid of the sled, burn the ladders, get rid of the ropes, get rid of all of it, the bag, get rid of all of it. If you're asking your guys, block on boards, cut that crap out. Cut that crap out. That's not the game. If you're asking the guy to kick the butt of the guy across from him and drive him straight back, like, there's never a good reason for that to be a one-on-one situation. There's never a good reason for that. That is where you've got to make this, suit this to your offensive lineman, and then you're getting pissed off because he's not, you're yelling at him like, we spend all day on the sled, and you should turn around and be like, I know, stop wasting all of our time. The worst thing is when, I'll get coaches who are new and haven't heard all this stuff, and we'll say, we're not really good on the offensive line because we don't have a sled. Do you want mine? I don't have one anymore, but dude, you don't need one. That's the biggest waste of money, and the grounds crew hates it because they got to mow around that thing because it's sitting there all doesn't move. Grass grows up all around it. Pads all get ripped. It's just garbage. And then the linebacker coach goes down there and does seat rolls on it, and you're embarrassed because God forbid that the news comes out there and starts filming practice and they see you doing seat rolls like it's remember the Titans out there. Jeez. Anyway, yeah, like, build everything around your offensive line. Make it all about them.
That's a really good way to get into this last point as well. Yet another segue. 2 in 1 time. I can't believe it. We're going to develop linemen that love their craft. And I think you kind of hit the head on the nail there when you're talking about it. He ought to be able to turn around and say, yeah, quit wasting our time, right, with these stupid sleds. If you're doing things that make them better at the game of football on game night, they will love their craft much more. People don't want to waste their time. So if you're constantly out there doing block on boards, you're doing all this, I get it. It's a drill. Look, maybe there's a room for it, elementary, middle school, to teach them like what that angle should look like. But you're running out of times that it's useful at all, right?
Useful. I think it's even less useful there because you're just running kids off. You know what I mean? It's the old line everybody up and make them run into each other, and the kid who already hit puberty kills the kid who hasn't. And you go, yeah, and then that kid quits. And then he hits puberty 2 years later on the baseball team, and you're like, why won't he play football? And it's like, because you
ran him off.
You didn't know what you're doing, and you thought the only thing, and it's okay if you don't know what you're doing and you're listening to this and you're feeling offended. To make changes. Don't keep doing, the violence of the game. Don't be the guy posting the dumb Twitter posts where kids are killing each other unnecessarily. There's no opportunity in the game where two players are just straight across from each other, running each other over. Shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think the loving their craft is getting them into where they can solve problems with the tools you've given them. Right? Once they realize that you've given them a toolbox and they can go out and do great at whatever you're asking them to do. And that the tools are different in everyone's toolbox, right? Like, some people will switch their O-linemen, right? They're going to flip them. So that way they have a down block side, because those kids aren't good at pulling, but man, can they down block.
I only run to the right. I don't run power right, counter left usually. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you'll give kids a toolbox that the tools match what they are going to try to go out and do, that's where they'll fall in love with the craft. No one is ever going to fall in love with anything if you're constantly just in a world of chaos. None of this changes. We just get yelled at. We've gotten the bare minimum of skills here. So I think it really weighs a lot on the coach. Go out, give them the right tools to problem solve. That's where they'll start having the fun. When they can communicate as a team and they understand that no one can beat us up front, right? Because show up in whatever you want to show up in. We're going to communicate. We're going to use what we got against you. We're going to win. And I think that's where you build the love of the game there.
Yeah, you stop having to teach. And again, it goes back to a program identity. You don't have to teach week in and week out. This is how we block this front. This is how we block that front. It's like, no, there's rules. There's occasionally things that I got to teach the center about how to identify the zero, but that's really it. As they get more further along, there are things that they learn that they can do, that they can adjust. But I go back to the very first thing that we do. We install zone. And I talk about there's 3 different types of schemes. There's man schemes, zone schemes, and gap schemes. Man schemes have no place except for in teaching, because in man schemes, you're always going to get beat, because if I have that man and they run a twist, I'm screwed.
Right.
Because that immediately becomes, if you say, well, we're going to pass it off. Well, now it's a zone scheme. man schemes have no place, but in day one teaching of zone, we teach count to 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. And what happens, you can only do this once, because once you've installed it, the next year, the guys that know it come back and they start calling out bear on the first rep. And, you're like, we don't know that yet. But I will have them block man scheme. And they will block man scheme for a couple days, and they'll block, 0, 1, 2, 3. And then they'll turn around and they'll go, coach, what if, like, I'm supposed to go get that linebacker, but I can't get to him because he's going over there. Like, what if, like, could I take his guy and he goes to my guy, and they learn combos? They figured out combos. They problem solved. Now, a lot of times just one kid did that, but the rest of them at least know one kid up there is smart, and they'll just listen to him. That's the start of problem solving. And then they start going, well, he does this and they do that. And they come over and you have these conversations with your offensive linemen that are like just amazing. And your offensive linemen they really will. And yes, they will all want to be tight ends, but they will truly, if you are teaching them the craft, if you are teaching them the details of the game, if you are stopping and having them turn around and showing them how their blocking opens the holes for the running back, if they understand the launch point of the quarterback, if they start to understand these rules, and I have the same things I say over and over again, I probably should write them down. I mean, they are written down somewhere, but I have the same things that I say over and over again, in run game and in pass game. And they learned just like anything else, they learned the ASKA, Lineman Stance Key Read Communication Assignment. They learn the important stuff of our offense. I don't try to teach them everything about football. I make them increase their football IQ within our scheme. So I go back to buck sweep. My kids don't know how to run a buck sweep. I don't need them to. I don't care if they know how to run a buck sweep. It doesn't matter to me. They don't know how to veer release. It doesn't matter to me. Now, if I need them to veer release, I can teach that, but it's not something we do. Like, they know how to hinge block stuff. So we simplify it, and we teach them the craft, and we teach them the problem solving. And I promise you that if these kids feel like they understand football because you have simplified it and you are talking to them like coaches on the field, instead of screaming at them to block on boards, to block somebody, or you're yelling at them about their hand placement, or you're yelling at them about their pad level. I don't care much about pad level. I'll be completely honest. I don't care much about pad level because I need you to be in his way. Why do I want you to drive him 5 yards downfield? That's where we're going. Be in his way so we can run by him. Don't put him down there. That's where we're going. You want to drive him to the sideline? Fine, great. Want to put him in the ground? We're going to work on that. Okay? Chick-fil-A sandwich, right? Chicken sandwich. Put it in knockdowns. I teach that. But that's a finish of a block. And that's after the guy displaces himself. And I'm doing that for domination purposes. And that's something that when you get a 280 pounder, a 250 pounder, a 220 pounder, and their defensive lineman is having that guy land on him 4 or 5 times. Like, and in here in Virginia, like, we're getting more turf, but here in Virginia, if you're doing that in October, it's in the mud, man. Hurricanes have hit, fields are torn up. You're putting him in the mud. It sucks. It absolutely sucks. And that's, you get up and you help him up. It's fun. But I think that one of the things that I've been able to do with offensive linemen, and generally had a good run with it, is taking offensive linemen who maybe weren't physical specimens, getting them to buy into the craft of being an offensive lineman, talk the talk, speak the language, solve the problems, become a unit that is a coach on the field. Usually not all 5. There's usually one that's the big, he's got to come. We got to bring him with us. You block him. Okay. You're always going to have injuries, and you're going to have a 6th guy, 7th guy that you got to bring down. Maybe your tight end, you got to make him a lineman for a week. It's like, that's okay. We'll talk him through it, because if everybody talks like one guy, I only need 2 or 3 of them to talk and point, they can tell the rest of them. Like, if one guy can count to 3, like, literally, I've had centers walk up there and be like, that's a 0. Hey, that's your 1, that's your 2, that's your 3, that's your 1, and then tell the whole line. I had an H-back who did that our first year at the last school. The offensive line was one guy knew it, but he was the left tackle. So if he was the center, it would have been fine, but he was the left tackle. So the H-back would tell the entire right side what to do because he knew it. And I mean, he was a senior, and he was going to. So the H-back is calling out, pointing, and you got to teach him not to worry about pointing. We got to get it right. Defensive guys are dumb. And it's the same guys. I know. I tell our offensive linemen, defensive linemen are dumb. Like, When you go over there, when you go over to the defensive side, because all of them play defensive line, right? When you turn around and you're now a defensive lineman, now you're stupid. Now it's not about craft. Now it's about getting out the ball and a hand fighting and kicking his butt and running him over and all this sort of stuff. Like, you're stupid now. You immediately become stupid. When you are an offensive lineman, you respect the craft. You understand that, displacement of bodies and using angles and leverage and all of these things. Like, you're a smart dude over here. You get to talk about, you get to point. So don't worry about them knowing what the block is or what the scheme is or anything like that. They're completely stupid. And you will be too when you turn around on defense. I get that. We have the craft. We have the knowledge. And when you get them to buy into that, when you get them believing, it's not, this stuff works. So a lot of coaches will do the raw stuff for the offensive line. We had a coach, he's a really good friend of mine. He nicknamed them the Goon Squad, and they had special awards. Yeah. And they had, they were their own thing, and they were the first guys to go through the meal line and everything like that. And the offensive linemen were special. They walked around with, whatever, the chains, the 2x4s, and all the awards and stuff, and the lunch pail, and they had all of them. Like, they had the whole set. And like, that doesn't work for me because it wouldn't be, I don't believe in it. Like, I think it's goofy, and I would just be like, it works for some guys, like, but I think it's goofy, and so I wouldn't be able to sit there with a straight face and be like, oh, look at you. Like, I can hand them a chicken sandwich, but if you get guys to buy in, this creates buy-in. Talk about what creates buy-in. Buy-in is them believing that you are making them a better football player and that you are helping them win more football games. They'll buy in. It's none of the other stuff. It's not it's not the weight room. It's not, I think that's all misguided. Like, I think that's very misguided stuff. I think, like, do they believe? And that requires you, especially if you're not an offensive line guru, and everybody doesn't have to have the same simple scheme. The better teacher you are, the more stuff you can do. I mean, I remember going to a clinic with the offensive line coach from Texas. I can't remember his name right now. This was years ago. And he's talking about, we got 26 protection schemes. Now, the reality is, no, they don't. They have a handful of protection schemes and they have tags. I have the same thing. I just don't get flabbergasted by the number. But I'm sure that he teaches more of the detail because his guys are higher level experience. He's also been an offensive line. This guy was an offensive line coach for decades. That's all he's done. This is his life. This is his world. He's an amazing teacher at the top of the profession. And so what his simplicity is different than mine. And mine, after coaching offensive line and doing this stuff for a long time, might be different than you if you are coaching 10-year-olds and you've never coached before. It looks different.
Yeah.
But the end result is the same. They buy in if they believe that you're making them a better football player and you're going to win more games.
I'm for it. I think we've checked all the boxes here, Joe. That is it for today. If you got something useful from this episode, please pay it forward. Pass the podcast along to someone else in the football world. Keep making the game better together. Today we talked about building a dominant O-line using the ASKA system, simplifying schemes to focus on execution, and developing linemen to love their craft. Give them a toolbox with real-life tools. Last week's topic was, I feel like I'm coaching alone. Next week, all about the defense. We're getting back to keeping up with the spread offense, figuring out how to make your defensive system fit whatever offense you're facing. We obviously will look at the spread, but I think you can do pretty much anything. Let's pay the bills one more time here, and Joe, and we'll close out.
Yeah, you can still go to joedanielfootball.com/system, and it'll still be the guide to building your ultimate defensive system. But I just want to talk about, we will be having a new guide, and it will be on just go to Joe Daniel Football. You'll see it. I promise you. It's going to be front and center. I don't know what the page is yet, but we've got a new guide that I put together called Breaking the Losing Cycle, and it is how to overcome that losing tradition that you're trying to break through. It's how to get over the hump where you get up on a team and think, everything's going great, and then everything falls apart. It's how to build that belief. It's how to establish that new way of doing things. And so that is going to be out. You'll be able to get it at Joe Daniel. By the time that this podcast is out, it'll be up at joedanielfootball.com. You can download that new manual on breaking the losing cycle for your football team. I think our defensive manual is great. I think this is a really good manual for all the coaches out there. And this is kind of our wheelhouse at JDFB is, if you're coming off of no wins, 1 win, 2 win, 3 wins, if you're trying to rebuild, if you're stuck at 4 or 5 wins and you can't seem to break through to that top tier, get those playoff wins. If you just can't seem to break through, and, rebuild or build that program, JDFB is the right place for you. This is what we do. And that guide is going to give you a good insight into how to get started with it.
Absolutely. Sweet. We will sales open and closing. You just covered that, right?
Yeah. Look for that. Go get the Breaking the Cycle.
Yeah, Breaking the Cycle. I'm excited. I'll get it. I always get all your guides. I love them, and I have the whole system.
They're free.
It just reminds me of what all's in there. Honestly, there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
If you're on a JDFB Insider, there's a lot of stuff you're missing out on. So much that you have to sometimes get reminders that. Oh yeah,
actually sending a new one out tomorrow. So
there you go.
Everybody will get access to a new.
So jump over to JoeDanielFootball.com, sign up, get the emails. The email's the cool part. I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter /X. You can email me at ChamberlainFootballConsulting@gmail.com. And then my Patreon is forever ongoing. Patreon.com/ChamberlainFootballConsulting. We just added a new coach the other day, and one of the cool features is the Marco Polo app. So if you've not ever used Marco Polo, it's just a chat group, but it's all video. It's kind of cool. Just kind of jump into my friends group and some of the coaches around here, a new coach from Nebraska, coach from over in Tennessee. So we've got guys in there just talking about their daily lives, some ball, some crap talking. It's a lot of fun. So Patreon.com/ChamberlainFootballConsulting. Joe, where are you at, sir?
You can find me at JoeDanielFootball.com. Joe at JoeDanielFootball.com is the email. And then Twitter. Well, let's do everything else. Joe Daniel Football, at Joe Daniel Football on Instagram, at Joe Daniel Football on TikTok, Facebook.com/Joe Daniel Football, JoeDanielFootball.com/YouTube, because it's a weird address. So I just kind of made a redirect, JoeDanielFootball.com/YouTube, and at Football Info on the X.
Awesome. If this is your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. We had a new one, and I lost it. A new closeout, and I lost it. Anyway, we'll stick with the old faithful. You can find us on your favorite podcatchers. Spotify and Apple Podcasts can be the primary two places. If you've been listening for a while, please leave a review, especially on Apple Podcasts, but anywhere you're listening. Reviews help us get to more coaches, and more coaches need us. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.